Welcome everybody to another episode of the Men's Sexual Mastery Podcast. This is your co-host Ben Timby, joined by my fellow co-host Ian Hawks. Welcome, brother.
Yeah. Hey, Ben. What's up, listeners?
Today we are going to be diving into the topic of blue balls, what it is and some of the myths around it, and how we can overcome blue balls. So I'd love to just start by passing it over to you, Hawks, and hearing what is your explanation of blue balls.
Blue balls is real, and there's also a lot of myths around it, as we're going to talk about in this podcast. So the reality of blue balls is that if we experience prolonged arousal without ejaculation or without proper circulation, then it's common for men to experience a dull achiness in the testicles or the lower abdomen. This is what we refer to as blue balls. So something that's important to name is that blue balls is not dangerous. There's no proof that there's harm from blue balls, but it can be uncomfortable. So with this, we can start to understand that it's actually a symptom of insufficient circulation of our sexual energy and of blood. When we become aroused, blood flow surges to the lingam and to the testicles, and we become engorged. If there is insufficient circulation, which is commonly caused by a hypertension in the pelvic floor, then that blood can get stuck in our genitals, and that creates this achiness and a sense of heaviness or fullness.
Yeah, so I'm hearing you just say this reframe here is just it's a misunderstanding oftentimes that some guys may be falling victim to it without realizing it, that there is a way to move this energy and alleviate this tension in the pelvic floor, kind of this bottling up is what it sounds like. So how does a
Yeah.
guy go about that?
Yeah, well, before we get into the solutions and how to manage yourself so that you don't have blue balls, let's talk about some of the myths because that'll start to lay more of the framework here. So, the first myth that I want to name is that yeah, this idea that, oh, I need to finish, otherwise I'll get blue balls, or I need to finish because my blue balls will get worse if I don't. And so, for that second part, actually, what tends to happen is that that sensation will fade over time. If you give it enough space, the blue balls will start to fade. And the first part of that if I don't have an ejaculation, I will get blue balls, that is very much a myth. That can happen, as I was saying, if we don't have proper circulation, but it's not inevitable. It's actually just illuminating to us that, hey, you're building up arousal and there's insufficient circulation here. So this can be a good indicator that there's opportunity for you to learn some of the skills of sexual mastery that allow us to actually circulate this sexual energy rather than just having it build up in our testicles and then release it outwards. So yeah, that's the first myth. I need to finish, otherwise I'll get blue balls. The next myth I kind of named already is that it's harmful if it's not relieved. So the reality is it can be uncomfortable, but it's not actually causing harm as far as we know. And then the last myth, and this one's really important, probably many people out there can relate to this. And the myth is that, my partner should relieve me. Yeah, if there's any form of sexual arousal, I have to have an ejaculation. And if that's with a partner, then it's her responsibility to make sure that I have an ejaculation so that I don't get blue balls. This is not true. As we've already talked about, blue balls are not an inevitability. They're a symptom of the man's own lack of integration with that sexual energy. And the other reality here is that if a man is using this line or this myth of like, hey, no, we can't stop having sex right now because if I don't finish, then I'm going to have blue balls. That's actually like emotional pressure and coercion. It's disguised as biology. So this is an important one to name right out of the gate, because this was something that I remember in high school was something that men talked about a lot and was used as a ploy. And, with some compassion for the man, maybe he believed that it was true. But if we're using this potential of blue balls as coercion to have our partner continue engaging in something sexual if she's not into it anymore, that's a big problem, and that needs to be addressed. So all of these reframes from the myths to reality are empowering for us as men, and that's what we really focus on in men's sexual mastery, is providing the toolkit and the education that we didn't receive so that we can actually feel empowered as men. So understanding that blue balls can happen, but we can also do a lot to prevent them from happening, or if we do get them, we can mitigate those symptoms and clear things up pretty quickly. And so we can get into those solutions next. Is there anything you want to add in there, Ben?
Yeah, no, just love those points, love debunking those myths. And also, just I wanted to highlight what you just said. Like, it's okay if this is something in the past that you thought you were a victim to. Like now, like now you're learning. We're going to be covering this. So, no shame, no guilt for men who have experienced, discomfort or even borderline pain, and express that to their partner, perhaps unconsciously coercing their partner. It is very convenient to like get what you want. I'm also guilty of that in the past, and like just want to highlight that there's like no shame or no guilt in that necessarily, but there is a level of maturity and learning how to integrate this energy and realize that you're not a victim to it, so that you can actually be empowered, just like you said. And one last thing I just wanted to cover really quick for any new listeners here. Why would a guy not want to ejaculate in the first place? Just a quick little basic rundown on that. Would you like to give that?
Sure. It's a big topic. Go back and listen to our other podcasts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just increased vitality, increased energy, increased power, increased empowerment, as I've already spoken to, which is what this is ultimately all about. And what I mean by that is being empowered with the understanding that sexual energy is life force energy. As we learn to contain and cultivate more of that sexual energy within us, it fuels us to have more power, to have more vitality as we move through the world, and more energy to direct towards what it is that we're building and what it is that we're creating. If it's not a new human life that we're endeavoring to create, that's of course the original purpose of our sexual fluids as men. But the vast majority of the time, for most sexually active men, you're not actually trying to create a baby when you're having an ejaculation. So, learning to be in a deeply fulfilling experience of sexual expression, meaning you can still make love and you can still self pleasure, but you can enjoy the pleasure that's there during that whole experience of arousal without fixating on the end goal of ejaculation. And then instead, you get to take that energy with you that you've cultivated with your partner or by yourself and bring it into whatever's next in your day and in your life. And this is something that must be experienced to understand. So, my guess is that if you're here, if you're listening to this, you're curious about these different ways of being with our sexual energy as men. And so, I'll leave it at that for now.
And also to add to that, this life force reframe comes from, this isn't just from us off the top of our heads. This is from traditional Chinese medicine and yogic traditions. And yeah, there's a whole world, and you can go back in our episodes, but I wanted to mention that just for any new brothers here. So with that, yeah, let's move into how to address blue balls. Hawks, what are the first steps you'd recommend for a guy?
So, learning how to breathe properly is a really important first step in this. The hypertension of the pelvic floor, just meaning chronic background constriction in our pelvic floor, that is most easily and accessibly mitigated through functional breath mechanics. And what I mean by that is breathing in deep down into your root. So the diaphragm, the thoracic diaphragm that sits below our rib cage, that will descend as we breathe in with functional breath mechanics. And as that thoracic diaphragm moves downwards, our pelvic floor also moves downwards in conjunction with that. And that creates an openness and an expansion that allows blood flow and circulation, not only of our blood, but also of the energy. So reverse Kegels are an active form of breathing that opens up and expands the pelvic floor to allow this circulation. And we have videos, we have other podcast episodes where we specifically talk about the breath. So I encourage you to go check that out. But learning how to breathe into our balls is a crucial step, and that will allow more circulation to move through our genitals as we're building arousal and afterwards. So I'd start there because that's something that we do 20,000 times every day, is breathing. And when we learn how to breathe properly, it's not only going to help our sexual energy, it's helping our overall vitality, it's helping our nervous system regulation, and so many other aspects of how to be in an optimal state. So after that, if you're experiencing blue balls and it's really uncomfortable, getting some cold water on your genitals is one of the best, fastest ways that I've found to relieve that pressure. So getting in a cold shower, or if you have access to a cold plunge or a cold body of water, getting in a lake or a river is really nice. And if you don't have any of that, you can also just take an ice pack, a cold compress, and put it under your balls. So bringing some of that cooling energy into the testicles is going to help to bring that pressure down, and actually alternating between, not just having it on there for a half hour, but having it on for 5 minutes if you're using an ice pack, and then take it out for 5 minutes and put it back on. And that's all helping the vasculature to expand and compress and open up and allow more of that blood flow circulation. And then from an energetic place, if we look at the Taoist perspectives on yin and yang energy, we can think about as men, when we're building up a lot of this sexual energy, it's a fiery yang energy, and that will concentrate in our testicles and create a lot of heat. And so we balance that by bringing in the cooling yin energy. And so water and cold water is really great for that cooling yin balancing effect. And then we can also look at other practices that allow us to calm down and just rest. So taking a gentle walk, or doing some yin style yoga that just involves slow, long stretching, deep stretching. That's also going to help our circulation as well. And after that, I would say that getting some more rigorous activity in can also be helpful too. It might be that your body really needs to bump up its circulation systemically. And so going for a little run, or doing some squats, going to the gym, and just really looking to give this energy somewhere to move to, so it's not all just stuck in your balls.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you brought in the Taoist perspective and bringing that water to the fire, that yin to the yang. Yeah, those are all really great places to start. Another Taoist practice, and again, there's a lot of different practices. There's elements of this, by the way, that are much more than we could explain in a podcast, and this is a lot of what we do deeper in the training, is deeper levels of tools and learning to circulate the energy, and all this supports you lasting longer and these other things. But one simple practice you can also do that I know I love doing is actually just a testicular massage as well. So taking your boys in your hands, I like to say it's like juicing grapes very gently. Again, do anything that we're referring to in these practices, putting ice packs on your balls, all this stuff. Do it at your own discretion, do it at your own risk. But if you gently, you'll just roll your balls between your fingers. I like to have my forefinger and my middle finger on bottom and my thumb on top, and just make some circular motions with some deep breathing, nice deep breaths down deep into the root, like we talked about, expanding the lower belly, sighing on the exhale, letting the shoulders soften, the whole body while doing that massage. That can really help, break up some of the stagnancy or the pressure I found as well. So yeah, that's another practice I'd throw in the hat as well.
Yeah. Yeah, the testicular massage is a really great practice as well. So I'm glad you brought that in. And as you mentioned, doing the reverse Kegels, breathing into the pelvic floor. And that's true while doing any of these other practices. If you're going for a light walk, do the reverse Kegel breathing as you're walking. If you're in the shower or you're in a cold plunge, breathe down into the pelvic floor and allow it to open up. That's stacking these different tools that's really going to help you. And of course, if you're doing testicle massage as well. So
Talk, would
bringing
you
that, go
Oh,
ahead.
would you do a quick, for guys who are listening in, could you give a quick run through of the reverse Kegel just for any
Yeah.
listeners?
Yeah. So reverse Kegel, you can think about it as when you're breathing in, breathe in through your nose. And then as you're breathing in, imagine you're pushing out a bowel movement. So bringing that opening and descending pressure down into the pelvic floor as you breathe in. So you can also place your hand underneath your perineum, that area just between your testicles and your anus. And when you're doing a reverse Kegel effectively, you should feel your perineum move downwards a little bit. So, yeah, just the simplest way is to think about breathing in while pushing out a bowel movement, and that will start to feel like an expansion and downward movement of the pelvic floor. And it's common for men to not have any sensory awareness of this area. So if it's your first time trying reverse Kegel breathing and you're not really feeling much, don't sweat it. That's, like I said, it's not uncommon, but it's also a really good indication that there's a lot of opportunity for you to grow and expand in those ways. And focusing on the reverse Kegel breathing is one of the best ways to start to bring more awareness to that part of our body, and where our attention goes, energy flows. And so that will start to open up the circulation of our sexual energy and the blood flow in the root, which is crucial for not getting blue balls. And that's what I'd like to steer the conversation right now, Ben, is to actually speak to the reality that once a man is practiced in these tools for energy circulation, blue balls are incredibly uncommon. So I remember when I first started my journey with semen intention and sexual energy transmutation and making love for hours without having an ejaculation, I would get blue balls every once in a while. And that was a part of the journey that showed me, okay, I've either built too much of a charge during that arousal session, or I'm not circulating this energy sufficiently in between arousal. And all of that is important for us as men because it's indicating, hey, you've got some work to do. And so now it's incredibly uncommon for me to actually get blue balls because I'm breathing in this way all of the time. I'm doing energy circulation practices multiple times a day. I'm well aware of those thresholds for myself, and I just play within those bounds. And so it's also, I think, helpful to understand that eventually, once you're working further along on this path, blue balls are no longer a concern at all. And earlier on, when you're getting them, just let it be an indication that, oh, there's my body is telling me something. It's asking for a little more attention to this area of sexual energy circulation. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And just that the energy's stuck. Like you're building up too much, you're getting too hot It's too fiery, too much pressure, and you're not allowing it to circulate. And just to come full circle on this entire conversation, that's what's at the core of all of this. We say in our work, like, sexual mastery is nervous system mastery. And many of us are running these unconscious programs of being in a sympathetic nervous system response, like a clenched, tight, having all this contraction, especially in our pelvic floor, which, as Hawks mentioned in the beginning of this, is what creates that tension and that stagnancy in the first place. So bringing in all these different tools and really just focusing on, again, the breath, staying in as much of a parasympathetic state as possible, even during lovemaking. Like, that's really powerful. That's when we start to open up non-ejaculatory orgasmic states, when we're bypassing those neural pathways we have, that sexual conditioning that many of us took on through porn and these other very intense outward expressions fixating on ejaculation. When you learn how to actually relax your entire body, there's an intelligence to your body, and it can actually move the energy itself as long as you're breathing and slowing down. And one last thing on this point too, like, there's this teaching we say, like, don't go beyond a 7 out of 10. If 10 is the point of no return in your lovemaking, if you stay at a 7 or lower and don't allow yourself to get close to that edge, in the Taoist traditions, they speak about like cooking your semen. If you get too hot, that can also, cause this. So staying at a 7 or lower out of 10, which can actually, a lot of guys at first are like, man, I just want the 10. I just want to get there and get the big hit. But there's a huge depletion afterwards. You're not going to last as long. You're not going to be able to go into the depths of what's possible with your partner from that space and for yourself. So just another invitation that, like, there is so much waiting for you in the subtle, in, lowering things down just a little bit, slowing things down, breathing deeply, softening the body, relaxing, breathing, all of this stuff while in lovemaking. It can be super, super potent. And just like you said, I'm similar for me. Like, I've still occasionally had blue balls episodes. They're becoming less and less frequent. Even this morning, I had like a beautiful, very primal, a lovemaking session with my partner, and came out of it just feeling just supercharged without an ejaculation and like ready to crush my day. Hit the gym, and man, it feels so good. And it feels so good for her because that fire is still burning. It's like we could make love later this afternoon. I'm just like ready to go, and so yeah, that's what's waiting for us, brothers, on the other side of this. And Hawks, is there anything else you want to add in before we wrap this one?
Well, since you just brought it up, I do want to add in to your question earlier on in the episode about why we might want to engage in semen intention or semen retention. And you just nailed a really big one that I didn't mention, which is the maintenance of attraction and that sexual simmer in our relationship. And so one of the tormenting aspects, I think, for men and women in a heterosexual relationship is that it's so common for there to be all of this attraction, like two magnets pulling towards each other, and then lovemaking happens. It's awesome. The man has an ejaculation. Hopefully, the woman has an orgasm or multiple. It all is really wonderful, right? But then after that lovemaking, after the man has an ejaculation, all of a sudden there's less attraction.
He rolls over.
He's feeling less attracted to his partner. There's this term post-nut clarity where, some men will say all of a sudden they realize, like, I don't even want to be with this person after I've just had an ejaculation. And sometimes that's valuable information. And sometimes there can just be a dissipation of the attraction that's temporary because the man has just released all of his sexual charge. And then it takes a couple of days for that to build back up. And then all of a sudden the man's horny again. And he's like, oh, I want you. You're so sexy. You're so beautiful. But in that space between the last ejaculation and that buildup of his attraction again, there's this period where he's oftentimes not as drawn to his partner. He might even become aloof and want to spend more time alone and the partner, the woman in this situation, can end up going through these waves of like, does he even want to be with me? What's going on? What's wrong with me? Did I say something? Did I do something? And she can become really self-conscious, and it's not actually because she's done anything wrong. It's just that he has lost his charge temporarily, and it does build back up. But that roller coaster can be really challenging on a relationship. And so as we as men learn to maintain our charge for longer periods of time, it allows for that attraction in our relationship to be really strong for so long, and can come, as you were saying, Ben, like you can come out of a beautiful lovemaking session and be ready to go again right away, and be already like still in that energy, even more amplified in that energy of, oh, you're so gorgeous, baby. Wow. And that is so nourishing for the partnership, and it's so nourishing for the woman. And that's part of our responsibility, I feel, as men, to be really stable, to be grounded, and to be that rock, not just like succumbing to these waves, ebbs and flows and waves of our attraction, but learning how to maintain that and cultivate it in a way that allows the partnership to just really thrive and deepen and amplify over time. So I wanted to add that in, and then the last piece around this I want to circle back to is the responsibility and integrity that we have as men in relationships, and that myth that I was speaking to earlier about, a situation where a man coerces a woman into something sexual because if we don't keep going, I'm going to get blue balls. Or, oh, like you're such a tease. You got me all aroused. And what, now we're not going to have sex? Well, I'm going to have blue balls. Just as you were saying, Ben, like, okay, compassion for guys who've done that. I probably did it back in high school. I don't remember a specific situation, but I know it was common. And also, with a new level of awareness, understanding that, hey, that's actually fucking bullshit. And that's not acceptable behavior. Your arousal is your responsibility. As a man,
Yeah.
my arousal is my responsibility. It's not my
Yeah.
partner's responsibility. And so, actually, just if you're listening to this, that pattern is no longer acceptable because
Yeah.
your awareness
Yeah.
is now at a different place. And it's imperative that we understand as men that our arousal is our responsibility. It's not our partner's responsibility. And if she is not into it, if she does not want to have sex, or if her body, if you've started having sex and now her body is going into a contraction and she's realizing, you know what, actually this isn't right anymore, we must as men be ready and willing and able to honor that. And this is where the empowerment piece comes in, because we can understand that, okay, if the lovemaking session is finished now, that's totally fine. I'm not going to be a victim to blue balls just because this happened. It's imperative that we understand that if it's not a fuck yes for our partner, then it's a no. And honoring that and understanding that we have the ability, we have the empowerment to manage our arousal, to circulate our sexual energy regardless of what's happening, and that no one owes you a release.
Yeah. And also just tagging onto that you listening to her body in these moments, like she may be just her body may be unconsciously testing your commitment to her, your ability to really listen to her. And it's an opportunity. Think of it as an opportunity to be creating more safety. And that safety is going to only allow you to go to deeper levels with her in the future. It's like, this is the same thing with semen retention or semen intention. It's like sacrificing the short term, pleasure for the longer term, deeper stuff that can be accessed only when you pass through those thresholds in relationship of being able to show up fully embodied as a man and allowing her to actually fully soften into you. And like, there are these moments in relationship where these are thresholds, and it's very easy. I know there's a lot to all this, and I know it's not the primary direction necessarily planned for the whole podcast, but it is. I'm glad you brought it up, because like any guy that has used blue balls as an excuse, like being a victim to this thing, this is a really an important thing for you to know, that there is a way to go about this where you can be getting much more quality sex and having deeper levels of connection to what it is you really want. And that's actually you owning your desire, you honoring and respecting your partner, you having the tools to own your relationship to your own arousal, like you said, your sexual energy, and empower yourself, to go there instead of just hiding behind some myth of a biological response. And so, yeah, we hope that this has been really helpful for you in that. And just so you know, if you're interested in diving in deeper, we have a school community that the link will be down below in the bio. We're running a 21-day semen intention challenge for brothers. It's totally free. We're about a week in or so now, but if you're listening to this and you want to join, guys are welcome to join at any point during the journey, and you can start to experience the benefits of these practices. There's a lot of material there in our community as well, and you can experience the support of brotherhood and community with you along the path. So if that's something that interests you, check out the link below in the bio. And Hawks, is there anything else you want to add to that?
Let's just put a little disclaimer in here that if you're experiencing excruciating pain, you know, go see a doctor. There's discomfort of blue balls, and if you're experiencing something that's really severe, that might not be blue balls. That might be something else. So just putting that disclaimer out there. But I'm sure the vast majority of the time, this is just the discomfort and the achiness and the heaviness of your body showing you that you got some work to do. So come check us out in the school community. Come join one of our group trainings, or buy our course and get everything that you need to really equip yourself to become empowered in all of these ways, because that's what we're really excited about, and that's what we have to share inside those places. So leave it at that. Thanks for tuning in. Good to drop in with you, Ben.
Good dropping in with you, brother. And big shout out to all the guys in our community who make this show possible. Big love to you guys and to all you listeners. If you get a chance to leave us a review or any comments on this, any suggestions for future topics that you'd like to hear, drop them in the comments below. And see you on the next one.